welcome to Traveling Inside Out. This is Alina, your host. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the podcast that explores the world within and out. And thank you for subscribing to Traveling Inside Out wherever you feel, wherever you listen to the podcast, basically. I am live, so happy birthday to me and happy International Happiness Day. Hmm, is that a thing that you should say? Probably not. I don't know. I did this last year, and so I decided to do it one more time. I'm not making it a tradition because as soon as I'm gonna say that I'm doing something again, I won't do it again. So I'm not promising anything. I done this last year, kind of like an update about my life because the podcast was hiatus at the time, and I decided to do yet another these kind of things because first and foremost, I want to start with the sad news for me. I'm all alone. It's my birthday, and unfortunately, my husband had to be out of town to for his work. So it's party of one over here. We're going to celebrate in the weekend. Obviously, his birthday is coming next week, so we're gonna do an in between. But how is everybody? I'm pretty sure nobody's going to watch live, and if they do, no. Regardless, I have to say that I am excited for today's episode just because I need to talk about, I have to talk about um, mental health. And why I'm saying that? Because traveling inside out from the very beginning, if you go back and listen, I think it was the teaser that I made. I'm talking about navigating life or navigating travels while struggling with anxiety. Well, guess what? I need to give an update on that. And not only that, but I have been in therapy. So I have done 4 months of therapy every week, and unfortunately or fortunately we will I'm gonna probably discuss that as well. um we had to stop at the end of February, so because I had to make a list kind of to figure out what I've learned or where I'm at, I was thinking to maybe share that with my listeners. So um before that, before getting into that, I do have to mention one more time, kind of like what I've done last year. So last year this time I was in the beginning of my immigration process, and I was booked for my biometrics, and I will make probably two episodes. I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm going to make two different episodes talking about how my immigration status went, basically. But for now, I have to say that I'm currently permanent resident, so a green card, so I'm all good to go, and I also have a job. I am going to talk more about that in next episodes. Also, what is the plan for today? I don't know, the weather is not looking nice at all. I'm looking at the window. It's not looking nice. I was planning to go to a park and see maybe some cherry blossoms because it looks like it blossomed a bit early, or at least in Washington did. I don't know what's the situation in New York, but I do believe that even though my brain is telling me not to, maybe I should. Speaking about mental health and learning how, basically learning how to do the things that sometimes I don't want to. Anyway, so why therapy again? I kept saying that I'm going to make an episode about. I did something similar when I was in Iceland, and I talk about going to the doctors as a. I was, as someone who hasn't been living in that country forever. How does it feel to go to the doctors compared with my home country and so on? And I keep saying that I'm going to make another episode of going to the doctors here. I have not done that yet, so maybe in the future, maybe at some point it's going to come. But the long story short is that I had some medical problems that, long story short, after doing some very expensive testing, it came out that there was nothing. There was nothing wrong with me. And that's one of the things that I hate the most. Knowing that there's something wrong with me and the doctor's telling me there's nothing wrong with you. And then where do I go from there? Like, where do I go from there? Because if I think that something is wrong with me and the doctor is like, yes, okay, so there is something wrong with you, this is what we're going to do, I feel different. But when it's, I feel like something is wrong with me and the doctor like, nope, that's just how you function. I don't like that part, right? So, thinking about all of that, I realized that it was time for me to go back to therapy. But I also have to mention a very important thing. I am lucky enough to be on my husband's I am lucky enough to be on my husband's health insurance. And so I'm paying $5, just $5 for a therapy session, which I think would be 200, between 250 and $300 if I don't have insurance. So the reason why I decided to go back to therapy was not only because I felt like I'm being overwhelmed a little bit too much and all that, but I was also able to afford $5 per week. I can totally afford that. So, um, I want to go a little bit through conclusions, and I'm going to basically talk more about it. I have always, so one of the first things that wanted to mention was that um, I decided to go back to therapy to understand myself and to learn how to navigate life together with the things that I discover. So I think what I wanted to say here was that in general, I thought that the things that I'm going to learn about myself, I need to navigate life despite of what I'm finding out. While now I'm coming from a point of view that I want to learn how to navigate life together with everything that I find out. So not to to see my struggles as just hurdles that I have to overcome, but more as points of reference to know what to do when I struggle. If that makes sense, it kind of makes sense to my brain, so hopefully it makes sense to your brain as well. Um, Something that I have said for the longest time, and I have, I think, probably written about this as well, is that um, nobody will take care of your mental health for me, right? So, or like for you, so you have to do the work. So if I put that for myself, but it's going to take care of my mental health, so I have to do the work. So no matter how much I can talk and discuss all sort of events that are happening in my life, at the end of the day, I'm still the one who has to do the work, who has to go through understanding why I struggle and work with what I have. Um, one Okay, so now the next thing that was kind of interesting, and I will see. Okay, so the next thing was throughout the conversations that I had with my therapist, I realized that some of the things that she was saying to me, I already knew. And I talked with her at the end, and she was telling me, so what does that tell you? The fact that, I mean, I didn't tell her like that, but I did say that I should probably trust my instincts. But it's a difference, because there are the instincts in which I know what I have to do to be better and to live um, a more sustainable life, but I'm not doing, because at the same time I don't believe, like, really that's what it takes. It doesn't sound that complicated, so like, what's the point, or things like that. But some of the things I just didn't believe that they were that important. And I can give few examples from. I have always struggled with keeping my exercising routine. I have always struggled. Like I'm going hard at it for a while, but then I at some point I'm not doing it anymore, and then it's so hard to go back at it. So okay, that's one thing. But I am realizing that when I am doing constant exercising, I feel physically and mentally better. So that's one of them. Another one was, for example, doing the hobbies that I like, which for me it can be a form of meditation, and it can be crocheting, and it can be coloring, straight up coloring, like an adult that I am. Yes, I am the kind of adult that likes coloring, or maybe um I was painting at some point a little bit, but not like painting as my making meals. And then I was doing all sort of tiny hobbies that I was starting and not doing anything with it. Now, the challenge that I have, and I'm going to talk about this all the way at the end, but I'm gonna just mention briefly now. The challenge that I have is that whenever I do the said hobbies that are again feeling like meditation to me, in the back of my head, there's always, shouldn't you make money out of this? Shouldn't you try to capitalize on this? And it's probably something that I have seen, and I also don't believe. Uh, I have seen so much all over the internet. People were like, I never planned to do this, but I was just making this for me and my friends. And then so many people wanted that I had to start this business because I was that amazing in this specific thing that I was doing, which I kind of feel like some of them are biased, to be honest with you. I don't think that everybody's like, I never thought about doing this, but now because I was doing it for myself and everybody else loved it so much. So I think at the back of my head is always the thing which, like, shouldn't I make money? Like, isn't this time just wasted? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But that's one of the challenges that I have when I try to do the things that I love. I sometimes stop because I'm like, I'm not good enough. I'm not, instead of just trying to focus on why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I like it, because I feel good, and because at the end I have something, whatever the thing would be, that I created, So that's always a nice thing to have, like an extra thing to have. But yeah, so basically another important thing was to trust my instincts. And um being at number 3 already, I have to mention that I also said this to my psychologist, that these are not lessons that I'm like, I've learned, tick 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 tick, I've learned this, I can move on. No, these are things that I have to keep going back to it and learn and relearn or remind myself about it, because it, I'm gonna get to, okay, just this, and I'm gonna get to another point to discuss more about that. um So, the number 4, which I have talked, if you are interested, I will make in the podcast description, in the episode notes. I'm going to put in the link for the Spotify. I have made a Spotify playlist with all of the episodes in which I'm talking about mental health. So if you are interested, you can have a listen to that, because I have talked a little bit about my upbringing each and there. But long story short, as I discovered in these 4 months, which it was so interesting because I feel like I'm very self aware, and I have done so much digging um, into my childhood or upbringing and so on, to understand some of the triggers, some of the trauma, and so on. And still, I had the epiphany talking with the psychologist to understand something that I haven't before, and that was that. Um, I had to react to things, not learn about them, which, so that was my childhood basically. I was just put in the middle of the thing and I had to figure it out instead of learning about the said thing. And then I've realized that as an adult, I made the same decisions. Being when I moved to Tunisia, which again, I've thought about it in the previous episode, or when I moved to Denmark, or when, like, I have thought about all of these trips, and most of the time when I made the decision to leave and don't look back, don't know what's going to happen, I don't know, like I just jumped and figured it out in the moment. I think that was because I didn't know otherwise. I didn't know how to do things otherwise. Now, granted, the opportunities came the way that they came, so it was not fully in my, like, I couldn't control how the opportunity came, but maybe I did. I don't know about that. But yeah, this was another thing that I had an epiphany about, which was my upbringing. I've learned things just by reacting to them. Number five, and I have talked about, again, I have to mention the previous episodes, but if I would have done the research, like do the my homework and actually mention the episode number and so on, or the name. But I have talked about going to therapy a few years back when I was stuck. It was really bad. I was doing so well in 2020 and then I crashed down in 2021 really bad that I went again to therapy, but it was like a group therapy. So that was a different kind of a thing. And unfortunately, the lesson that I've learned there was that my anxiety, I have some triggers that bring up my anxiety, and it depends on me to control my triggers in a way. It's not on the world to not trigger me, it's on me to control my triggers. And what I've learned now is that the anxiety that I have and I've been having since probably teenage years or so on was there to help me and to protect me because I was in a sort of a danger. I was not safe. And I didn't realize that. Like, I came from the point of view, like, no, I have to work on my triggers to stop being triggered. And now I'm learning, no, the anxiety did its job. Now, the thing that I have to work on is to understand that the anxiety that I used to have shouldn't apply, or, shouldn't apply currently, because the danger is not the same anymore. And so the triggers that I have, while they are important to be aware of, but I have to, let me, I'm losing my train of thought because there's so much noise outside that it's which is something else that I'm going to talk about. It's like making me go a little bit crazy. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this: my anxiety was there to protect me, but it's also time to let go. And another thing, because again, coming from, I thought that if I'm being triggered, then it's kind of I'm losing the game of not triggered. To understand that if it's coming back, if the anxieties are coming back, and if I'm feeling again overwhelmed and so on, to not feel like I'm losing the game, just like to not feel defeated basically, just because it came back. I should just be more mindful of it and understand what is real and what it's not. And then this goes kind of back to the instincts that I was talking about earlier. And understand, there was this metaphor that the therapist said, that imagine that you are by a bonfire in a forest in the night and you are enjoying like roasting some marshmallows or whatever you're doing, and then there's a bear, you hear a bear close by, And so obviously your instincts should be that you want to survive. So you're going to do whatever you know how to do in order to survive. Anxiety is when you hear the bear and you do everything that you can to survive, but in reality, there's no bear there. So, understanding the difference between that, like understanding when my panic is real and when my panic is not. And another thing that I was saying all the time, but I wasn't fully understanding what I was saying, and that's don't panic if you panic, because that can happen as well, like spiraling, like I'm panicking because this is happening, but I should not panic, so now I'm panicking because why am I panicking? So understanding basically the panic and understanding the reality of like, okay, am I actually in danger? And trying to understand, okay, is this fact or is this a feeling? Am I actually in danger? If I'm asking anyone else around me about this specific situation, what would they say? Something like this. And I can give an example that um, I have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with myself that sometimes, even though I don't think I do play the victim role. And I can give an example that a few weeks back, like a month or something like that, there was a lot of things coming at once at me, with paperwork, with money that I discovered that I was owing since 2014 in Romania. And all of the things came at once. There was like a lot of paperwork, a lot of things happening all at once, and I felt overwhelmed, and I was like, I just cannot breathe. I cannot have a second. I can't, like, I just managed to get a freaking heal. And now I'm like, I'm back here and so on. And then my therapist told me, okay, let's talk about the money issues. Is this going to affect your current life? Are you going to get a bad score? Are you going to get like anything of that? And then I realized, actually, no, I can afford paying how much I can afford paying it, and there's nothing. It's just me being bothered by the fact that it's not fair that I've been owning money and nobody told me. So while I tried to think about it, and then I was like, oh, okay. So there's just no reason for me to feel overwhelmed. It's just me wanting in a way to feel overwhelmed because that's the familiar thing. That's what I know. And if I feel overwhelmed, then maybe I feel better when I don't feel overwhelmed, if that makes sense. So maybe in a way, I I'm chasing a little bit the feeling of look at me being overwhelmed and then not feeling overwhelmed when I could just not be overwhelmed because it was frustrating. It was frustrating, yes, it was. But was it completely is going to change my life? Is going to affect me for the rest of my life? No. So then why stress about it? I okay, so this is number 5. I have to mention, which I was supposed to do in the beginning of this episode. Clearly, I am not a specialist of any kind in mental health. I'm just one person who is fascinated about learning about mental health. So I'm just talking about my experience. So please do not take my words as any kind of advice. I am just sharing my experience of going to therapy and how I'm navigating basically what I'm learning. Okay. And speaking about learning, uh, it's okay. So this is one of the things because I just mentioned it. This is one of the things that again, um, I had the epiphany of it. For the longest time, I said that I'm scared to be happy because as soon as I'm saying that I'm happy, life will knock the hell out of me, knock me down, knock me up, up and down. So I've realized now that all I wanted was a break. Can freaking life can give me a second? Just give me a second. Give me a second. Like give me a second. Because I've started to work on my breathing and I'm like, can I breathe in and breathe out without life punching me in the face? Because it feels like I'm breathing in. And when to do the nice breathe control, breathe out, bang, life is punching me in the face. And so I kept wanting to like ask from the universe, can you give me one full breath in and out without being so freaking punchy at me? And then it hit me, pun intended. I'm not supposed to ask for breaks, because that's not how life, and life doesn't fucking owe me anything, like anything at all. So what I'm supposed to do is to work on my breathing in and out, regardless of the punches that I'm getting. So it's not about how I can come back, about how I can stay put even when I get the punches. So I think that was like an insane epiphany for me, and I don't know how my listener, how you feel about it, but it's something that it's just, I'm struggling to find the word. It's gonna come back to me, but it's something that I have to truly work on and to try to understand that I will never get a break. And when I do get, like, if I get a break, to actually see it break. Maybe I do and I don't see the breaks as breaks. That's also another thing. Um, I have talked about this again in previous episodes, in which I'm talking that I have been struggling with lack of control, and that's my main anxiety. Like, my main things that bother me, they come from the lack of control. And because of that, I am struggling to, like, excuse me, to understand the world as I live it. But the important thing that I've understand now is that the lack of control comes from the fact that I didn't live in a safe space growing up. And because that was not a safe space, obviously my anxiety is being triggered again when things are out of control. When in reality, things are out of the control of one person the majority of the time. But other people are not struggling as much as I do. And so another thing that the therapist said was to keep it in mind, but keep it in context. So not just remember that you have issues with lack of control, but try to remember why I had issues with lack of control, what happened, or why I'm struggling with that, and then try to understand the difference between that and between that happened in the past and what it is in the present. Because while I still don't have a full safe space, you want to listen to the podcast in which I'm talking about the murder on my block, I'm just saying, um, while I still don't have the safe space, challenges are different. And so understanding, yeah, as I was saying, understanding the difference between event from my childhood and the reality of where I'm live now, that's important to know. And as I was saying, keep it in mind and keeping in context, to also understand that I am in an unsafe space. So there are factors, outside factors, that are out of my control, and that gives me anxiety, that makes me feel uneasy. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, we all want to be safe. And so I don't want to get to the point when I'm going to feel safe when I'm not safe, because that's not the point of therapy. And that's not, like, I don't want to stop feeling or go numb, because it's not what we want. And so to understand that that's okay. I'm in a situation that I am, that I cannot control currently. I do not feel safe for some reasons, but I feel safe for other reasons. And so having it all in mind and then keep context of my upbringing and my childhood, that should give me a little bit of a release regarding the anxiety. Um, And together with that, I have to mention something that probably whoever has been to therapy, they know that emotions are temporary, which in the midst of it, you don't think that. You don't think that at all. And so reminding me that emotions are temporary and the situations that I'm in are temporary, because looking back, historically speaking, most of the situations I was in, they were temporary. It didn't feel like that in the moment. It felt like a forever, but they weren't. They were temporary. So trying to keep this in mind. Um, Maybe I'm not able to keep that in mind when I'm in the midst of the anxiety, but I am able to keep it in mind soon after. So that's really important. And then I have, I have to admit, I have anger issues. And my anger issues are, again, probably coming from the lack of control. Or when I'm put in situations when things are truly unfair, or I feel like something is not okay. And I explode immediately. And one of the things that I've learned is to try to just move away from the situation. Unfortunately, it's not always possible. So I will try better in the future to remove myself, because I know when I'm angry and I'm in that the midst of my anger and I'm like already burst and I'm out of control again. Um, you cannot reason with me because I am not the same person. So while I'm aware of this, I need to get better at making other people understand that you cannot reason with me right now. Let me go through this emotion, because this is something else that I've learned. As I was saying, like, emotions are temporary, but if I hold on to it, then it's going to affect me more and more. So I just need to like go through. Let me go through my anger and then come on the other side, and then we can talk. Um, but another thing that I've learned is breathing exercise. That is helping me tremendously. So what I've done is to breathe in and count to 8, maybe, and then breathe out on the mouth. Breathe in on the nose and breathe out on the mouth as slow as I'm capable. And just try to just focus, breathe out as slow as I can. Because when I'm in that anger moment, my brain is reacting to a danger. So my brain is ready to attack. My brain is there to protect me. My brain is understanding, oh, you're angry, so something is going wrong, so you need to protect, so you need to do this and this and that. However, if I manage to do the breath work, that's actually going to calm the brain as well. And so the brain is gonna be confused and be like, wait, how are we angry and ready to attack if the rest of the body is coming down? So because of that, I can basically try to not have a reaction until I do the breath work. At least insert one breath work from the moment when I feel like I'm going to explode in my anger and the moment when I'm reacting. Sometimes it happens so fast. So, this is an exercise that I have to learn, to try to just put at least one breath work, just one breath work in between exploding and reacting. And it worked. It happened to me and it worked. I would highly recommend to for whoever is interested to do breath exercises. I'm not doing breath when I'm saying breath exercises, I'm not referring to I woke up in the morning and I'm doing my breath work for 3 minutes. Nothing, not that there's something wrong with it. I'm just saying that I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about when I feel that I'm like my anxiety is rising and all that. I'm starting to try to breathe in and breathe out, so I can try to calm myself and try to talk myself understanding, is this a real threat or it is not? Is this a fact or a feeling. Now I know fake news and all that. How do you know fact from feeling? But I mean, for your own, your own perception and so on. Technically, you should be able to know what's fact and what's what it's not. Now, the other thing um, that we talked about was about, and again, might be again a little bit of playing the victim, saying that I have never seen examples of healthy relationships throughout my life. I have just it just happened. So a lot of times I'm kind of giving examples and be like, well, yeah, but I didn't know because I never see that, and so on. However, what I have to add to that is that I have never seen a healthy relationship until I was in one. And that's okay. It's okay to be my own example of a healthy relationship that I have with my husband. And I'm going to tear up when I think about it. I guess it's still hard. I think this one is still hard. Tearing up about it, I'm going to believe that it's still an emotional thing to talk about. So, yeah, it's literally just like that. Not to refer to the movie that coincidentally my husband worked on. Anyway, doesn't matter. Too much happening at once. Um, it's okay. It's okay to be my own healthy relationship. To be my own example and to learn, because I have so many bad examples, that it's so easy to recognize that some things are just, I'm not saying, believe me, we are not perfect at all. We still have our struggles and challenges, but understanding that there's no poison, because I feel like a lot of the relationships that I've seen around me, they are just poisonous. They are just not there for each other. And so to see and to understand that, oh wait, it can be. It can, because I didn't, since I didn't have no examples, I didn't believe that that's possible. And so I didn't believe that that's possible. Maybe some of my decisions as an adult were based on, doesn't matter because it doesn't exist anyway. So whatever the hell. Um, so yeah, I had to mention this. And now the last one that I talked about made me cry because the last one that I had talk about in the therapy session made me cry. And my therapist was, and I was like, I did so well, I didn't cry at all 4 months, and I'm crying in the last thing that I'm trying to make. And she was like, because you're still struggling with this. So she helped me, kind of like a mantra, which I don't know if it's a mantra. Like I'm not saying that it is, but if I'm not able to say the word that I want to say without crying and affecting me, that means that it's still, like, I'm not there yet. So she helped me to make the sentence that it's easier for me to tell. So you know how usually, you know, there is that saying, how can a and move a mountain, and it's said, and the answer is like piece by piece. It's kind of the same. How can I get to the sentence that I want to say, in which I truly believe and I'm not struggling with? It's by putting other intermediate words until I'm able to get to that. So actually, before mentioning that, I have to say that I've another thing that I discovered through therapy is that throughout my life, the majority of my life, like the beginning of my life, I had to survive. And then soon after, I had to perform. And so I never had the time to just be me, basically. And I guess that's one of the issues that I had to confront with, was this, the fact that I never got to just be. I always had to survive and then perform. Okay. So that being said, is the last point that I'm trying to make is that I am still struggling to see my value as a person not connected to my skills in my career, or like my whatever I've realized, like whatever I successfully done or not. And I have to mention, because I made this podcast, I started the podcast, Traveling Inside Out. I started the podcast with the idea to talk about my trips, because I have traveled. It was soon after I came from South American trip, which again I've talked so much about it. I've done 8 to 9 months by myself backpacking in South America, and it's been a lot of years since then. I just can't believe that it's been so many years since then. And that was amazing because I've realized how strong I am and how much I can do. I didn't even, like, physically strong, mentally strong. Like, I just didn't imagine that I'm able to do that and to figure things out by myself in the midst of trying to understand where to go, how to do things, speaking or not speaking the language, things like that. Um, I was very much impressed and so powerful and feeling all of that. But that's the trick. That's where it can become tricky, because coming from I'm a powerful woman, I'm a badass chick, I can do this and that. The moment when I stop doing the extraordinary things, then I start feeling like I'm a loser. I don't matter. I I am nobody. I have no value. And so, while that experience was amazing from understanding that my limits are way, way, way higher than I thought, now I'm coming from a point of view where I want to see myself being able, feeling like a valuable person just because I exist. I'm not as valuable because I'm not doing this and that and whatever. And I'm not, um, yeah, I'm not less valuable because I'm not further in life than I would like to be. And my struggles don't make me less of a person, because at the same time I would never think like that about somebody else, but I would, or about a friend of mine. I would never say to a friend of mine, oh, you're not working, that means that you're not uh, valuable, I don't want to talk with you, you're not my friend anymore. Like, I would never in a million years, never in a million years, like, never, never. And then why do I do that? Like, why do I apply that to me, to my being? That makes sense. And so, another thing that my therapist was saying, that yeah, we will learn how, like, that we are valuable and that it's okay to occupy space. And immediately when she said, I like shredded. I was like shaking and I was like, ugh, no, me occupy space. I'm like 5'1", 5 feet one, or like 155 centimeters. Um, I'm like so small, and I feel always that everybody around me is so tall and just like ready to take over me, basically. And so these are the two things that I have to still work on. I am learning the extent to which I matter. I'm gonna say it again. I am learning the extent to which I matter, and something like I shouldn't be scared to occupy space. And because my therapist was a woman, but she said from the beginning that she's kind of teaching therapy through the context of the fact that we are affected by capitalism, because the capitalism is making us think that we don't matter if we are not productive. And This is also something, as I was saying in the beginning, with my hobbies, things that I like. So at the back of my head is that thing like, you should be better, you should do this better, like you should make some money out of this, stop wasting your time, this is not worth it, and things like that. Like none of that um should affect me the way that I am. But was born and raised, and nowadays I think it's even worse than how it was back in the 90s. I mean, Romania in the 90s was a completely different kind of world. But trying to think that I don't matter if I'm not productive, and being productive meaning what? Doing something at any moment of my life, and I'm not. And the thing is that I'm not the kind of person who I'm actually doing that. But when I don't do things, I feel so guilty. Like the moment when I'm just like slacking, basically, because I do slack a lot, I'm not gonna lie. It's never fully embracing, let's say, the slackness, like really just relaxing. I always have in the back of my head, shouldn't you do this, shouldn't you do that, shouldn't you write something, shouldn't you edit a video, shouldn't you post some pictures, shouldn't you, like, there's always so much coming at me from my all of the voices in my freaking head that I very it's very difficult for me to relax, and also to see my value as in just being a person, just being a person. And then at the same time, believing other people, because when I hear people that are impressed by some of the things that I've done, I'm like, nah, anybody can do it. And some people are like, no, 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 just no. And I'm like, and so this also goes back into trusting my instincts, because it is about the fact that I did have some of the answers on how to get better within me, but I didn't believe it because I don't trust my own value. So then I don't trust my own thinking to get better, if that makes sense. And in the last few minutes, I also want to mention that through these therapy sessions, my therapist said that she thinks I might be on the spectrum, which I have always thought that I might have ADHD or ADHD. I don't know which one is different, what's the difference between, and so on. But I I believe that it's important to know. So I went to a doctor to try to get an assessment. The doctor said that it doesn't scream like I have anything. We will see. Because again, it's one of the things, like, I know that something is wrong. So I know that something is wrong. And if the doctor is telling me, like, nope, like, I know I'm neurodivergent. Like, I know for a fact. I just don't understand what shape or form I am. Because I know I don't function like a typical brain. I just don't. I've seen so many, I've done so much research that I'm like, that's something is there. So I'm on the path to discover in what shape or form my brain works, because at the end of the day, I want to learn to work with what I have, not against what I have. Because if for the longest time I've been trying to do things that my brain is actually not formed like that, so it just cannot do some of the things because of how it's formed, then it shouldn't be time to understand who I am, so I can actually navigate life with what I have, not against it, or like not to try to do more than I should, or things like that. Um, so yeah, this is I can't believe it that I really thought I'm gonna have an episode of like 15 minutes. I was like, I'm gonna finish too soon. And then guess what happened? That didn't happen. So that being said, for whoever is interested, I have I mean, this is going live on YouTube, so it's gonna still be live on YouTube. But I do have, for whoever is listening, a YouTube account which is called Alina Grad, and um, I'm posting there mostly shorts. I'm really trying and wanting to do long form videos. I have so much footage, and I just don't have the patience or the knowledge or the skills to do the editing. So hopefully something will snap and I will be able to do it. Talking about ADHD, I don't know. Um so yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm telling you on the outro how to get in touch with me. And I want to say it one more time, I am not a specialist. I am just one person who has been in therapy, and I was just talking about my realization basically and things that I've learned after 4 months of therapy. So, again, today is my birthday. Happy birthday to me. It's a bit upsetting that I'm all alone, but I'm gonna have some sweets, macarons. I bought some macarons to celebrate, and I'm gonna probably go out because even though in the back of my head I'm like, no, I just wanna lounge. I can lounge any other day. So I'm going to do a little bit of work, and then I'm going to go and see if there are any trees in bloom, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna feel better as soon as I get into a park. So going over the hurdle of going to the park, but then as soon as I get to the park, it's gonna be like, yay, that's amazing. We like trees, and hopefully, um, I'm gonna see some bloom blossoms. Okay, thank you. Bye. Wait, I said bye, but I wasn't ready with the outro. Pa, 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 pa. Okay, now bye. This concludes today's episode. Thank you for listening and for reviewing Traveling Inside Out. If you want to get in touch with me, send an email to podcast@alinaigrad.com. And remember, your outer journey begins with inner work. Until next time, bye.